Thank you for joining me on this channel, which is dedicated to surviving toxic and abusive relationships. I decided to create this channel having been in an extremely toxic and narcissistic relationship for 2.5 years. I'm now 10 months into my healing recovery journey, and I have to say it's been a hell of a 10 months. I'm in a lot better place now, but I can tell you it's been one of the hardest things, if not the hardest thing I've ever had to do coming out of this relationship. The toll it took on my mental health, the toll it took on my physical health. So with this video, this is sort of an introductory video, I suppose. So I thought I'd just sort of almost set the scene here, because I think if you are watching this, then you've obviously related to the subject matter, and you're interested in how you can survive coming out of an abusive relationship, or maybe just better understanding topics around narcissism, cluster B personality disorders, borderline personality disorders, because it's extremely confusing if you've never been around it before, if you've never had experience of it before, as I hadn't. Then it's extremely difficult to wrap your head around it, quite frankly. I should point out at the beginning that I'm not a clinical psychologist, counsellor, or therapist. I'm just a guy who was in an abusive relationship for 2.5 years, and I've got the lived experience, which, as I say, if you're watching this, then perhaps you can relate to a lot of the things that I'll be discussing in this video and others to come. And I one of the reasons why I decided to do this was because actually I thought it would be quite healing for me to sort of talk out loud. There is a big community out there of people, and there's some really great YouTube channels that you can watch. I myself have watched a lot of videos from Ask Anushka, HG Tudor, and several others. So let's start from the beginning. So I met my abusive partner on a dating app, as so many of us do these days, and I'd been single for quite a while at this point, I suppose. I'd been married previously. I was in a relationship with my ex-wife for 14 years. We had a daughter together, and that sadly ended in 2017, at the beginning of 2017. And whilst it was incredibly sad, I mean, it's important to point out that we was really happy together for 14 years. We travelled the world together, we lived abroad, we had a home, we had a daughter, and it ended, which is sad. I mean, it didn't end because of any nefarious reason. It just one of those things, I suppose. But I think the important thing to add is that we are still very good friends. You know, we co-parent our child together, and we communicate. We spoke all the way through the end of our marriage, and we were very civil and supportive of one another, and we remain so. So I haven't had a background of being with lots of different partners, going from one relationship to the next, and I was in a very normal, loving relationship. So I met this person, let's just call them the narcissist in this case, and we went on our first date. Now, I'm one of those people that when I go on a date, I kind of know instantly if it's going to be a yes or a no. Well, I always know if it's a no. You get a vibe or whatever the case may be, and you just think, actually, no, this isn't going to be right. But you still entertain it. You sit there, you go through the motions. You might enjoy a drink or coffee, and after however long that lasts for, you wish them luck and off you go. But with this individual, the second I saw her, I was really stunned. She was very attractive, and as we spoke, she was extremely articulate and funny, And I was completely charmed, I must say. And we had a kiss at the end of the night, and we planned our next date almost immediately. Um, and our third date was actually a weekend away. We drove down to the coast. We stayed at a hotel. We did lots of walking. We had some food, and I kind of felt like I was sort of falling in love with her at that point. She she told me at the very outset about how she had been in, an abusive marriage previously, and how she'd been having an affair with somebody who basically was threatening to leave their wife for her, but effectively she'd become his dirty little secret. And I really felt sorry for her from how she described some of her past relationships. And I guess I'm a bit of a romantic at heart, and I felt like I just wanted to sort of almost scoop her up, sweep her up off of her feet and rescue her, because what I could see was a kind, loving, generous, beautiful person inside and out that I just wanted to sort of love, basically. And it all happened very quickly. And she would buy me little gifts, and I'd be inundated with messages, and she'd tell me that I was the nicest person she'd ever met. And when I did things for her, she'd tell me that it was the kindest thing anyone had ever done before. She'd tell me how beautiful I was, and I just felt so special with this person. Now, for those of you that are familiar with some of the words and phrases that will come up within the surviving narcissistic abuse relationship communities, you'll be familiar with the term love bombing. And so this was that phase. Now, I don't know whether this is something that they do consciously or unconsciously, but nevertheless, the early stages of the relationship it's like a fairy tale, but it's unsustainable in any relationship. You have that sort of like honeymoon period, but this is particularly intense, and it was particularly intense. And after only a few weeks, we told each other that we loved each other, and she lived with her parents, despite being nearly 40, and she didn't have her own car. She drove her mum's car, and it wasn't long before we were talking about the idea of her moving in with me. And she met my daughter, and then weird things started to happen that seemed completely out of character. So she enjoyed a drink, and we would drink together, but she could become different after she'd had a few drinks. When she was a bit intoxicated, it was almost like the mask started to slip. And I remember one evening she had been quite drunk, and even though myself and my friend were suggesting that perhaps she not have anything more to drink, she persisted. We had to get a cab home. We had to stop the cab several times for her to throw up, and when we got back, I was being very sort of supporting and loving, and she was just telling me, oh, I'm never going to love her now, and she's done everything wrong, she's ruined everything. And I would encourage her that this wasn't the case, and be very supportive towards her. And then, I think a week later, we went out with her friends for dinner, and it was a lovely evening. There was 3 couples there, so there was 6 in total. And when we got back to my house, we sat on the sofa to just put the TV on, and I think a football game came on immediately. And my eyes lit up, and I said, "Oh, great! Look, the football." And her response was to stand up and just have a complete emotional reaction, where she just switched. And I was then being told that I'm not the person she thought I was, and how could I do this to her, and I don't care about her. I just didn't understand it. And again, I put it down to the drink. But this kind of switching would be a consistent theme throughout the relationship. And it wasn't long before we had the first incident of her dumping me. Reaction, it was like out of the blue. It was New Year's Eve. We'd had a good evening with our friends, and And she just, at the end of the night, we came home. I don't even know what the issue was, but she just turned around and said to me, "That's it, I'm done, we're done." And I think she may have even got her stuff and got a cab home. And then the next day, when we tried to talk about it, for her, she completely dismissed the incident and minimized it. And as far as she was concerned, she didn't mean it. She don't know why she said it. She was upset about me not being able to fulfill the requirements of what she wanted me to do, and whatever that is, whether that was I'm not replying to a text quick enough, or I'm not answering her question in the way that she wants me to answer it. I'm not being Mr. Perfect, whatever Mr. Perfect is meant to be. And I'd be punished for this over and over again. And it starts to become very confusing because you're now in love with this person. You're starting to picture a future with this person. You're discussing plans into the future. And it was particularly difficult throughout the first 6 months in our relationship because, we're going back to 2020 now and then into 2021. So here in the UK, we had lockdowns. And so we were spending a lot of time together, just the two of us, which maybe put a little bit of pressure on the relationship. And I used to wonder, is that the case? Is it because of these external challenges? But as time went on, you realise this wasn't the case. Now, throughout this period, I would have been gaslighted on so many occasions, sort of told that I was the problem and I'm the person who's doing this, and I'm not loving enough, I'm not kind enough. And I would say to us, what can I do? What can I do to make this better? And she'd just say, be kind to me. And I'd think to myself, but I am being kind to you. I don't understand. I don't get this image that you're trying to portray as me being this cruel monster. And you become very disorientated, and you can't quite tell up from down. Your head's discombobulated. 1 minute they're this smiling, lovely, funny person that you feel you've got this deep connection with, and the next moment they're turning on you as if you are this evil, bad person. I think they call it black and white thinking. So they see you as all good, they see you as all bad. Now, interestingly, I've got a friend of mine who is a doctor, and there's stories that her and I recounted, and perhaps in further videos I'll discuss specific incidences and how that sort of manifested for others to start to witness her behaviour. But after the breakup, she actually did say to me, like, "Thank God you and that woman are not together anymore." And I was really surprised because I thought that she liked her. It turns out that she had seen through the vow a long time ago, but resisted saying anything to me in case my narcissistic partner then tried to triangulate me against them. Little did I realise that actually my narcissistic partner had already tried to triangulate my friend against me at her own wedding. As I say, that's a story I'll tell on another time. But she said to me, my friend, who is a doctor, and she does have experience with mental health challenges and issues like bipolar. She said to me she's certain that she's got borderline personality disorder, an emotional, unstable personality disorder. And I think what I've discovered through a lot of research and insight and reflection is that the likelihood is that my ex-partner would have had co-occurring borderline personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder. And apparently it's very common for a cluster B personality individual to have a comorbid diagnosis. Now, obviously, she was never diagnosed, and whenever I had suggested, I asked the question once, because I asked, do you know if you've got bipolar? Because I couldn't understand this up and down, this switching. I had no idea what narcissistic personality disorder meant or was. I had no idea. I'd never heard of borderline personality disorder. And for me, a psychopath was, these Michael Myers in Halloween, a crazed killer. I didn't realise that they live among us. And my ex is actually a health professional. She works in the NHS, and she does project this air of this angelic, saint-like figure that her colleagues perhaps see and certain friends see. So it was interesting actually when my friend told me that she was certain she had this diagnosis, and yeah, it's a very difficult one to wrap your head around, and I've been trying to do that all year, and I've discovered the truth of the situation and learnt so much on my journey. And I think one of the early realizations was that I'd been in this abusive relationship, and I'd learnt about the term intermittent reinforcement. And if you're not familiar with that, it is effectively, I love you, so I bombard you with affection, I make you feel special, and that I'm here for you, and you trust me, you love me, and the next minute I push you away and I tell you you're terrible, you're useless, and then I pull you back to me. And the chemicals in your body, whether it's releasing cortisol, which is going to be putting you in a sort of stressful fight or flight situation, or whether you're releasing the love hormones, the chemical composition of your body is going to be all over the place. So whether you're releasing cortisol or oxytocin, and that's going to have an impact on your body that you might not even be consciously aware of. When I came out of my relationship at the start of the year, I initially felt relieved. I was actually like, because I'd known that it wasn't right for some time. I just couldn't find a way out. And then now that I'm out, I was expecting to feel a sense of relief, but quickly, like a drug addict who's having to go cold turkey, I was craving my drug. My body was so used to this intermittent reinforcement, going through these ups and downs, that all of a sudden now I didn't know what to do. And it wasn't long after that I came to the conclusion that I had, and I didn't come to this conclusion on my own either, by the way. This was in consultation with others, that I'd had complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And the difference between CPTSD and normal PTSD is that post-traumatic stress disorder will typically come about from a single incident. So perhaps, I don't know, you was in a car crash, or you witnessed something horrific, or lost your dog, or something along those lines. But complex post-traumatic stress disorder is when lots of things have happened over a period of time, and it's very difficult to untangle from that mess. I questioned my own sense of reality. Was it really me all along? Because my narcissistic ex actually called me a narcissist. And when she said that, I didn't know what she meant. I thought she was saying that I could be a bit self-centered and vain, because I thought that's what a narcissist is, right? They're just someone who likes to look in the mirror a lot. And I remember sort of pondering and thinking, well, I'm sure I can be a bit self-centered and selfish at times, but I'm fairly certain that we all are, to a degree, in our own sort of personal lives. I didn't realise that she was calling me a narcissist in the literal sense. That was actually one of the reasons why I started to look into it, because she told me this is what I am. And I actually went, because I was doing counselling now, because I was already so confused and so broken while still in the relationship. And I actually spoke to my counsellor and said, am I a narcissist? I mean, do you think I am? I honestly asked the question. I genuinely started to wonder, is it me? And at times I even, got to the point where, I would cry in front of her. She would break me down, and then she wanted to act as the person who would then come and pick me up, and it was just abusive. Now, I'll go into more detail around some of the incidences that happen in the past and future videos, and the reason why is that I think if you're watching this again, you'll probably find that you can relate to a lot of this. And I think what's important is that you do hear from other people. And this is why, again, another reason why I made this channel, which is because I wanted to sort of share my own lived experiences, because you can realize that you're not alone, you're not going crazy, that this has happened to other people, and that unfortunately, and it's sad, but there are people out there and they do have these personality disorders, and they walk among us, wolves in sheep's clothing, and they wear masks. But you know, they don't teach you this stuff when you're a kid. Maybe they should. But I got to a point in April, so it was sort of 3.5, 4 months down the line, and I was completely broken. I couldn't work. I couldn't socialise with people. I'd lost weight. My skin, I'd broken out in rosacea, sort of from a stress response. I was crying and just felt so broken, abandoned. I had no self-confidence. I had no self-esteem. She had told me on several occasions that no one else would ever have me. She told me that, you know, she called me evil. I was a bad person. And I believed it. And I just felt broken. And I remember one day I was in London with some colleagues, and we was at lunch together, and I just had to get up and go. And I went home, and I actually went to my grandmother's, and I just sat there and cried. And the very next day, I decided I need to do something about this. And it was hard, but I went to the doctors, and I went on to antidepressants. I really didn't want to. Now, bearing in mind, after my 14-year relationship with my wife ended, I was sad, but I never got to a point where I was completely broken. I had enough strength to sort of pick myself up and carry on, and I, you know, put my daughter first, and she became my absolute priority in my life. And I'll talk more about how my narcissistic ex tried to influence my daughter, and how she tried to triangulate me and my daughter, because that was bloody sick and twisted. But as well as having gone on to medication, I also started to do counselling immediately. I also started a coaching course because I thought I needed to rebuild my confidence. I needed to rebuild my self-esteem, and I needed to challenge my thoughts about myself, unhelpful thoughts, and re-examine my own self-image that I'd created in my head. Because even though her and I were no longer together, the lingering presence and the deep scars that she'd inflicted upon me was still causing harm. And I got myself into a regular gym routine, and I started Reiki. I started to read up around philosophies like Stoicism, and I educated myself. And education's a really important part of this. And as I said, there's lots of good channels here on YouTube. Dr. Ramani is another one. And educating yourself around this is really important. Just be careful, because I think it can almost become a bit of an obsession. It did for me for a while, actually, where this is like such eye-opening information. It's like you've just entered into a whole new world, and you then will look back retrospectively at your relationship in a completely different way, but you will want to then overanalyze it. But it's healing in the sense that you understand why and how this happened, because you're never going to get any closure from them. They're never going to take accountability or responsibility for their actions. They don't do that. They don't do genuine apologies. They don't do self introspection. They don't. So it's really important that you don't seek that from them, but seek it from yourself. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there. This was just sort of like a sort of an entry point into my case study, if you will, in order to give the full account of what happened in my lived experience. This would have to be a 5-hour podcast as a bare minimum. So I'll leave it here for now, and on my next video I'll talk a bit more in detail around specific incidences that hopefully you'll be able to relate to, and through relating to it, hopefully you'll realise that you're not alone. So thanks a lot for watching this. If you'd like to like the video and subscribe, that would be great, and hope to see you on the next one. Thanks.